Cool. Well, we can just get started. If you're here for the Power Flows Battling Bots session, then you're in the right place. Let me share my slides. So this is the webinar series. I'm Alan. I'm an engineer here at Descope. I moved to the Bay Area earlier last year from Austin. So not too big of a change. And I guess just a little bit more about me. I'm pretty into rock climbing and following the Premier League, as well as reading biographies. And I know everyone's so curious. The current biography I'm reading is The Emperor of All Maladies, which is a biography about a disease rather than a person, but just as riveting. So basically today, I introduced myself already. What we're going to cover is we're going to start out, discuss Descope a little bit, just some of the basics. And then we'll talk about bot prevention. What are some of the common attacks that you'll see? And then we'll get into how Descope and bot prevention are connected and how you can use Descope to prevent bot attacks in any sort of application. So that'll wrap up with a demo of actually implementing bot protection into your authentication flow with Descope. So that'll use like maybe new browser fingerprinting or reCAPTCHA and different flow components to customize. Yeah, so getting into Descope. Descope is a customer identity and access management platform. It basically lets you implement authentication and user management into your platform with drag and drop, flow editing, a lot of stuff listed here. Many of you are probably already familiar, so I'll just make it brief. First up, there's obviously no-code flows. That's what this webinar series is about, which is being able to modify user journeys in a visual editor, kind of like maybe like a Figma style, where you can connect different components, where there'll be like you can customize screens, and then from the screens, you can start different actions, and you can do conditions to have more complex logic. And finally, you can have connectors, which is in the bottom right corner here. Yeah, where you can integrate third-party services. So some of those we'll be using for bot detection, like reCAPTCHA, but there's others that aren't bot related, maybe like Segment for analytics or SendGrid for sending emails. There's a bunch that you can see in the console, and we're always adding more. There's in the top right corner on the slide, you can see not only do we have user-focused authentication, but we have the concept of tenants, which is really helpful for B2B organizations. So you can have users be added to tenants, and tenants can have specific functionality, like supporting SCIM, supporting SSO, a lot of those things that are helpful for these B2B enterprises implementing authentication. And finally, there's the user management aspect, which is related to all the other ones, but also includes like authorization. So we have stuff like role-based access control, attribute-based access control, and relationship-based access control, and we help developers kind of implement that really easily. So that's enough on Descope. Here are just 4 examples of different bot attacks that exist. There's many more. Hopefully y'all don't encounter them. But first, we have credential stuffing, which is just taking compromised credentials from an existing platform and then attempting to use those on different applications. And this works because people often reuse credentials across different platforms. So maybe reusing username and password and stuff across apps. Brute force is just, you don't even have to have a compromised credential. You just attempt to test out different common passwords across all people. Maybe it's like password 123, or it's like a string of commonly typed like QWERTY or something letters. That's the sort of brute force attack, is just using a username and just common passwords in a system. That works because people often use really basic passwords that are easy for them to remember, and therefore somewhat easy for attackers to guess. The third is denial of service. So this is basically where you use bots to overwhelm a service or an application with a bunch of requests or a bunch of traffic. And then this prevents legitimate users from actually accessing the service because it'll crash from all the usage, or the servers can't scale fast enough to handle the load. This is maybe commonly you'll see DDoS, which is just a distributed version where instead of the bots coming from a single place, it's a distributed network of bots that are doing the attack. Maybe it's like spoofed or something, making it a little harder to handle. Last one, credit card fraud. It's kind of similar to, or can be implemented with, a sort of credential stuffing tactic. Maybe you have part of the financial, like the payment information of a user, and you're trying to guess the, I don't know, the PIN, and you can use like brute force methods to guess, or you can use already compromised credentials. And bots help scale this up and make it a much larger scale vulnerability than if it was manually done. So you can see there's a lot of internet traffic coming from bots. So it's a pretty big issue, like account takeover, your site's performance can be degraded, and yeah, a lot of bad stuff can occur. So those are some talked about what Descope is, what some of the common attack vectors are, cyber attacks, and how are those two things related. So with Descope, not only can you create authentication flows and handle user management, but basically we make it really easy in a no-code manner to implement really advanced bot detection and multi-factor authentication. So what you can do is you can go into our editor and you can just drag and drop different components to check if a bot is detected. And this is natively supported. So you don't have to configure any connectors or anything if you don't want to. You can use our own bot score calculation to just include it as a condition in your flow to conduct more authentication or different factors of authentication if there's a bot detected or not. And you can do this, you can do a simple is bot detected. You can do is, what else you can do is you can just define your own risk score, and based on different segments of their score, do different levels of authentication. And then you can also check for if a user is using compromised account information. That would be using a connector, or if it's like a temporary email or something. So you can basically, with Descope, if there was no bot detection, it'd be very easy to just add more and more levels of authentication. And that would create a lot of friction for bots signing up, but also legitimate users. So here, by having conditional statements, you can kind of make it harder on bots and then keep things frictionless for regular users. So you get the best of both worlds. You get greater security, and then you get frictionless authentication. So there's native bot scoring and bot detection in Descope, but you can also use connectors, and that's, I think, one of the really powerful things is you can integrate stuff like reCAPTCHA, which is a pretty common bot detection software that keeps sites safe. There's like maybe reCAPTCHA v2 or v3, and here we have Enterprise, which is also, it can be an invisible, or it is an invisible form of bot detection that is only visible when the risk score is higher, and then a user will have to do a sort of challenge. So we'll actually be, in a second when we demo, we'll be implementing reCAPTCHA into our flow, and you'll see how it can just take literally like a minute to implement into your screen and then into the actual logic of the flow. So you can see all the benefits listed here of reCAPTCHA Enterprise, and then the result that you have in Descope when you combine the two forces together. And then you can even imagine in your flow, once you embed the connector, you can have other connectors that send data back to reCAPTCHA in order to improve the site-specific model for detecting bots that reCAPTCHA uses. So it can be self-reinforcing. So pretty cool. The last thing before we get into a demo is a kind of example. I think it's a good use case of how Descope helps prevent a bot issue for an application in real life. So this is GradRight. It's a ed fintech. So basically, they help students with finding study abroad programs that are financeable. So they bring together the students, universities offering these programs, and then lenders to help students finance their trips. So one of their issues was that OTP costs, which are very real, and maybe you've seen it in the news, but it's not cheap to send all these SMS messages. So they were having issues where bots were just increasing levels of OTP sending way beyond the norm of what legitimate users were using. So how Descope helped was they implemented it so that instead of just allowing all these OTPs to be sent, they could do different levels of authentication and different methods based on if it's likely to be a bot or not. So if it's a real user, you can continue using OTP via maybe SMS, and that's pretty easy to accomplish. With a bot, you can add more authentication before that. Maybe you can do like a magic link for email or social or something. So it made it really easy to solve the bot problem. When they would have to implement all this themselves, and it would be a lot of dev time, and will they do it right and whatnot. So that's a quick story. I'll switch from sharing this to sharing my screen so we can get into the demo now. Cool. Okay, so hopefully you can see my screen now. So what we're going to do in the demo is we'll start out with this basic flow that you kind of get. If you're following along, you could essentially where I'm at right now is just you create an account on Descope and then you create a new project. And this is, you'll get started and this will be one of the basic flows. You can configure it with like passkeys or any of the other authentication methods, doesn't really matter. But yeah, here's where we're at, is we have a basic login flow where you have magic link via email, and then you have social login via Google and Microsoft. So you can see the actions that are connected. If you continue with your email, it'll be magic link. Once it's done, if you continue with social, it'll be a social login. And you can see the different actions that we talked about earlier. And after both of those complete, you can see it goes into checking if it's a new user. And if it's a new user, then you'll get more user information. You'll get their name, and then you'll get their phone number so that they can do MFA in the future. And you can see after inputting their phone number, you can see the action that follows each screen. So after they input the phone, they'll verify the phone number via OTP. And then at the end, if you're an existing user, then it'll go straight to the end. Actually, maybe this update should even be after the verify, but that doesn't matter for this one. No. So what we see here is a basic flow, maybe. There's no bot detection yet, right? So if you had a bunch of bots, they could kind of just easily spam or increase your OTP costs or whatever. And if it's an existing user, then there's not much protection. If they get a magic link successfully or are able to log in via social, then they're just in. But what if you wanted to add more levels of authentication if it's a bot? And that's something that if you're doing on your own, you'd have to go bring in all these third-party services or implement, which would take a while. But here we're just gonna do it real quick. So all you'll do is bot, you'll add a condition, and then is bot info. So what we'll have is, if it is a bot, then so we want an existing user to go here. If it is a bot, then what we'll want to do is we'll want to verify. We'll want to do another level of authentication. So we can do a sign in via phone. So we can add another screen. We can add a button. Can do input phone. Phone. Jesus, whatever. And then maybe we'll fill this container, and then we'll have a phone input there. We'll make it mandatory. So if it's not a bot, then we can just end the flow. If it's likely to be a bot, then we'll have user phone. And then we'll want to do OTP via SMS. And I think we want to do this one, where you just verify the phone. So, okay, and then we want to demo this in real time. So let me delete my previous user. So first, this is just basically our hosted flow page. So you can go to auth.descope.io and then /login and then put your project ID. And then that'll automatically render the flow that's in your project, which you can find there. It'll by default render the sign up or inflow, which is what's happening here. So okay, so oh yeah, I logged in. I think it saved my information from last time. But yeah, I logged in via social, which is the first step, right? And it was like, is this a new user? And yes, because I just deleted my account. So I'll save that. And then I'll add my phone number. My phone is there. Oh, why is it not oh, maybe I need to not sure why that's oh, I guess I should probably, and again, that does not look right. Oh, whatever, that's fine. So. So I think it's this flow at the end. Oh no, that's right. I don't know, for some reason it's being funky, but yeah, I think it's just not showing the final screen because we have some other, you can see the user was created here. And then the second time we do this flow, it should just log me in. I think our hosted flow page is having some issues. So if I run it here. Okay, yeah, so that's what should happen is if you log in with the user again, it's not a bot. It's like me actually logging in, so it just goes all the way to the end. But if it had been a bot, then what would happen is the user would have to do SMS OTP again. So you can see how there's the basic authentication flow, and then you can easily add bot detection at the bottom. So that's how you do it with just the native integration. And some of the other cool features you can add, these are also conditions you can do is a disposable email. So if a disposable email is used, you can have them go to a screen that's like sign in, like don't use it, like disposable email not allowed, and then you can just end the flow there, or whatever logic that you want. Same thing with if it's a free email provider. You can do the same. This one you'll have to add an action before in order to prevent signups with temp emails or weird account information. Those are kind of two cool conditions that you can use in your flow. Another one is getting into the connectors that we mentioned earlier. One of them that I have created already there, but is really easy to create. You don't even need a secret or anything, is the have I been pawned connector to check if your password has been compromised. So you can basically, I already created it here. It's just called dev. And then all you need to do is you need to add a connector, and then you can do the have I been pawned. And you can choose how you want to handle different errors. So if password has appeared in a breach or something, you can lead to a screen that says like choose new password, and then you can have them navigate maybe back to the home screen if you want, because their password has been breached, and then they should try a different account. So that's an easy way to help your users, stay safe, and not use passwords that are compromised. So those are some of the connectors. These are some of the other ones. And then what we'll actually use right now is, we talked about reCAPTCHA Enterprise. V3 is like the same thing, but I guess it's what you get if you don't want to join the enterprise plan. So it's pretty similar service, just without a higher level of support from Google. And it's also an invisible one that helps you prevent bot attacks. So I've already added my site key and stuff to this one. So this is the reCAPTCHA connector that I created before this demo. And then basically once you've created it, you can just, you'll get this reCAPTCHA widget, and you'll be able to embed it into your flow. So you can even choose, you can have different connectors, I don't know, maybe for prod and dev or something. You'll choose the connector here, you'll add it to a screen. And then after that, you'll need to include your verify here. So it'll embed the snippet, and then this is how you include the reCAPTCHA risk calculation into your bot score. So after this, maybe like for new users, like it doesn't matter, or I mean, you can, either way it works. Let's see, actually we can also can do that. We can put it right before this new user. Yeah, so now for any user that signs in, it'll calculate, it'll include the reCAPTCHA v3 calculation of the bot score into your into like the native like conditions that you use. So now basically in your condition, you can it'll include the reCAPTCHA bot score calculation. So that's how easy it is to add the reCAPTCHA connector into your application. And some of the other ones that you can also use traceable. This one you can use to check how likely an email is to be a bot email. And then you can do MFA based on that. Obviously, there's an enterprise and have I been pawned. So I think that mostly covers it. The last thing we want to talk about is fingerprinting. So to enable this, you'll go to settings, or when you first create a flow, you'll enable device fingerprinting. And what this does is it lets you check essentially if a user is using a VPN or a user is using a new device to log in. And for either of those or one of them, you can conduct different logic. So we can test that out. So basically, if you don't have, let's see, if you don't have device fingerprinting enabled, what you'll see is bot. Let's try is new device, and then what we'll see is there's risk info has these two features: risk score and bot detected. But once you enable device fingerprinting and you save, what you'll see is that risk info has these two new attributes. You'll have a new device and VPN detected. So we'll start with that. You also need to add the fingerprint action somewhere before that. So we can put it here as well. So this embeds the fingerprinting functionality into your flow. And then we can clean up the flow there. So basically now if you use a new device, or a new browser or something, it'll do MFA. So if we try this flow again, but maybe use incognito browser, should happen. You saw the reCAPTCHA pop up. I'll unshare while I actually that should be fine. Just Google app. Okay. Oh wait, I didn't know the reCAPTCHA. Yeah, you have to enable certain sites in the captcha. But basically, yeah, if it's a new device now, it'll do another level of MFA, which I guess we can test in this flow. You can do the same for if is VPN. So this info VPN detected is true. So for any of these, you can do another level of authentication. And that's how you easily implement device fingerprinting for, fingerprinting or new devices. So that's mainly it. Let's see if there's, we'll stop sharing and then see if there's questions. So outside of the Have I Been Pawned connector, there's the other couple I mentioned. There's the reCAPTCHA v3 and Enterprise. And then there's the traceable connector, which is specifically focuses on API-driven security, and in our implementation, it's email likeliness of email to be a bot. So that's that. How does device fingerprinting work? What types of information does it keep track of? Yeah, device fingerprinting, I guess behind the scenes is powered by this Fingerprint.js service. And basically, it uses all kinds of data about the user's location. So it does device location analysis, and then it also tracks like stuff like HTTP headers and users' actions and the cookies, and it takes all that into account to see if it's yeah, to kind of fingerprint the user. And part of that is like if you're coming in from new IP addresses or something, then it'll know it's a new device, or certain IP addresses are like VPNs. So that's kind of the information that it keeps track of to help applications detect bots. Yeah, with fingerprinting, you can check if it's new device or if it's a VPN outside of bot detection. So those are two other pretty cool ways to do it. Seems like this might be the last question. So yeah, feel free to send others if you'll have them. If Descope is an OIDC or SAML provider and it's not embedded into the app directly, will this still work? It will, because the flow will still be running in a browser that receives the same requests from the device that the user is using to complete. So in a sense, it'll be pretty much the same, because if it's embedded into an application, then the user will be running the application on their device and then going through the flow. The OIDC or SAML process will just add in like a redirect so that the user is still running the flow, but it's just on a different URL in that browser. So it'll be totally fine. Can you share more? Another question. Can you share more details on how your bot score is calculated? Yeah, basically, it's powered by Cloudflare, which has their own bot score calculation. Basically, it gives a score of between 0 and 100, 0 being most likely to be a bot and 100 being most likely to be a real person. And it calculates this with ML using previous data about what bot activity looks like on an application, and then what real user or real human activity looks like on an application to train a model. And then it runs that model, and inference time is usually like less than like 50 milliseconds, so it doesn't really impact performance at all. So it basically just takes all this data, kind of like the fingerprint data that a browser will return, and it gives that to Cloudflare, and then Cloudflare calculates a score by giving that data to its model. The model returns the score, and then Cloudflare will return the score to Descope, and then you can use that in your flow to detect bots and solve all these different issues. Cool. So that's pretty much all I had planned for today. Let's see. Slide-wise, we're pretty much done. If there's no questions, we can pretty much wrap it up. Thanks so much for listening. Hopefully you learned something new about Descope or battling bots. If you want to sign up, if you're not signed up already, you can go to descope.com/sign-up. There's also some resources. We'll send out these slides afterwards so you can easily sign up or learn more about the different use cases for fraud prevention, like a lot of the stuff we talked about, fingerprinting, the reCAPTCHA connectors, customer story. We have a video on that. But I think that's it. Appreciate y'all taking the time, and have a good day.